I think people are scared to put out the idea that maybe they either like lost a little bit of money in real estate, or they're not perfect at real estate, and maybe in hopes of like not scaring away future partners or whatever. But like, dude, real estate's not it's an art, dude. It's not perfect.
Yep.
You really have to like gauge the situation and the opportunity, and like you got to look at it with like a loose mindset.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where Kyle Curtin takes you on an extraordinary journey alongside renowned multifamily real estate experts from every corner of the United States. We teach you how to harness the power of real estate investing and witness the transformation of your wealth building strategy. Let's create wealth together.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 144 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, we get the great pleasure of chatting with Josh Poitras. Josh is an awesome friend of mine, my team lead of the New Hampshire team at Candor Realty, a multifamily-focused investor based in New England from Lowell, Mass. Josh, super excited to have you on here, man. What the heck is going on? How's everything?
Awesome. What's up, Kyle? Thanks for having me, bud. I really appreciate you making the time. I apologize. I'm doing this while driving, but emergency showing came up and I had to go to duty and do my job. So here we are. Hello, investors. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to putting on a great show for you guys today. So.
Hell yeah, man. Absolutely. So to kind of jump right in, my friend, like, tell us originally where you got started. You know, I mean, even like I leave it open, you know what I mean? Like some people like jumping into the industry for the first time, or like where they grew up, like, I don't know, you know, like anywhere you want to jump in your humble beginnings is totally cool.
As real estate focused, so I'll try to start with my real estate career. And I would say it really, really started when I was like in my early 20s and bought a townhouse, a renovated townhouse at like my early 20s. And it was at 2006, like the height of the, 2006 market. I would say that would be like my intro to real estate. I got a little bit, it was a condo, so I got on the condo association. I got a grasp for what it is to run like an association and run real estate issues and stuff like that. I actually ended up short selling it because I went through a divorce in 2008 hit, and we ended up short selling the property. So that was kind of like my quick intro to real estate. I knew from a young age I wanted to be in it, but I didn't know how to be in it. And so that was kind of like my first, I would say, dipping my toes into the water. So, not a great start, but it was a start.
Exactly, man.
Then I took off and went to Afghanistan. Came home, became a firefighter, and I've worked 8 24-hour shifts a day, realized I needed to fill it with a background job or a side job. And some of the guys were doing real estate. And real estate was super flexible. I was able to kind of dictate my own schedule, which you are kind of to an extent, but you still have to, serve your clients. So it's much more flexible than your average 9 to 5, banging nails kind of job. But I just got heavy involved into it. I started in the Cambridge, Somerville area doing rentals. I had no idea where to start or how to start. I just took a rental job in Cambridge, Somerville, where, rentals are pretty expensive down there, and it's kind of a very, very competitive market. And that was my taste into like the kind of grittiness of the industry, kind of seeing, how business can be done, witnessing disloyalty and deception and everything else that exists in the real estate world. So it was kind of a rude awakening, but I realized, after doing rentals, I wanted sales. I wanted to have a little more, loyal clients, and I really wanted to provide my service to people. So, so I started getting into sales, after rentals.
Hell yeah, man.
Somerville. So.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, quite the start, man, especially with, investors in Mass, you know what I mean? Or in Boston, especially. Definitely a bit of a different type of animal than a lot of people are used to, unless you're kind of in that, part of the state, I guess. But yeah, man, no, I can just imagine, you know what I mean?
Super competitive, landlords, just super rich, uber rich landlords, all the tenants, their properties, just everything was in their favor. So it's kind of like how the real estate market is overall now, really. It was just crazy. It was crazy. So, when I moved over to sales, when I told myself, hey, I'm done with trying to shove deals together, and I just kind of wanted to provide more of a service to people. I started the sales in that area. And it was a little tougher because, I didn't know much about real estate sales or representation, and the price points of the multifamilies in that area, or even in the houses in general in that area, is super high, and their clients are super, super educated. So it was a tough place to start, but I did get a few sales here and there. What ended up happening was I met a client who convinced me, and this is where my real estate investment career starts, who convinced me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Armando Montalago. He was the first guy who did the first Flip This House on HGTV. It was he had black curly hair. He was destroying houses with tractors and stuff. I don't know if you guys remember that. He had a big cat house. Well, he was doing this big bus tours, kind of like how we do the meetups. He was doing these bus tours, right? And he would hold these one-day seminars, really cheap. Everyone would go, and it was basically, a sales seminar on their side, but they would try to educate you on rentals. And then they would show you, they would offer something called a bus tour. And all it was really you go to kind of a centralized place, and they take you through a bunch of showings and show you how they would flip a house, and you fucking pay them, excuse my language, you pay them they wanted $20,000 a seat, and you could bring a friend. And I'm this is crazy. I'm not paying you $20,000 to show me what you would do in a house in Arizona.
Yeah.
Well, my client that convinced me to go to the seminar did. So, and they teach you, how to talk to the credit companies to get your credit cards up, to get the credit. They say you can bring a friend, so you split the $20,000 between a friend, so it's $10,000 and $10,000. It's crazy. And when people sign up for it, at these events, there would be 100 people. You know what I mean? And that's at $20,000 a seat, maybe every 2 seats. Imagine the money in the room, right?
Damn.
So I'm following my client through this process, right? And basically what he does is teach you the 70% rule, right? You can Google it online, but basically you teach you learn the 70% rule in a weekend, and you kind of do various games and different mnemonics and things to kind of memorize the 70% rule in your head, so that it just is almost becomes part of you. It sounds like something you could have Googled or looked at a Biggerpockets forum, but there was a lot more to it than just that. Now that I look back on it, I'm God, man, that was a lot of money for something I could have Googled. But what it did was, some of those people who went had a lot of money to spend, but no time. Some of those people that went had no money, but all the time. And what had happened was it put us all on the same language, put us all on the same system. And what inherently was created was a network that we all spoke the same language. It was all one large community of investors. And then they had a Facebook group, and you would just come up with your deals, you'd post your deals, and you'd have somebody fund it like that. I mean, your deal was funded in seconds.
Damn.
Because you all spoke the same language. You all understood. You all knew, everyone knew who had what money. I mean, and then, so the games you play, they're competitions with other teams. You formulate teams, and you do teams to learn. Like you would go, one part of the education was memorizing repair prices. So like they give you universal repair prices. So a bathroom would be this much a remodel, a faucet would be $100, bathroom, living room fan would be this much, and we'd, the teams would spend so much time together trying to like memorize this, and then we'd go to a game and we'd compete like a memory game against the other teams. You had all different colored teams, and you would win the competition, and then you'd win a prize. So it was kind of super fun.
Yeah.
One of the competitions was a dance contest.
I bet you ripped it up, man.
I didn't, but my business partner at the time could dance like Michael Jackson, and I had no idea. It was my client. Dude, I was like, we had a dance contest. I'm like, whatever, this is fucking bullshit. I want to know how to flip property and make money. Like, what are these games,
Yeah.
They do a dance contest, and my partner's in first place doing a moonwalk across the stage. And I'm like, dude, what is going on, man? I'm like, this is crazy, dude. I couldn't believe it. Well, the prize for that was you get invited back. Well, he was so good at dancing, he won like 12 contests in a row. So we ended and we were getting, Armando was flying us out free to the event because we were the help. Now we became the help. Like now we knew the 70% rule. We were teaching, and we were making contacts at every meetup, Wow. So we got I have 2 years worth of contacts and education and just, experience to different investors in different parts of the nation. And I kind of riffed off that. And that's why I came to Candor, because I kind of saw the same kind of system developing. And that's why I was like, this is the system. This is what you do. And so that's why I came to Candor Realty Group, ultimately.
Dude, that's cool as shit, huh? Wow.
Yeah, so I ended up teaching, me and my partner at the time, we ended up teaching, I want to say it was 2 years of the 70% rules to helping teaching. I'm not saying we're these super qualified real estate investors or whatever. Just we were there to help, and we were just around it, and it ended up becoming part of us. And there's just 2 years of exposure and contact building, and it was insane.
Yeah, the power of community.
And that's how I know so much. That's how I know. That's how I got my education. I didn't get my education reading Biggerpockets forums, dude, and looking up investor articles, and I don't have a CPA background. I'm not a finance guy. I'm super blue collar, super common sense, super transparent, and I literally learned by trial and error with times, dude. And that's I think is a niche that I offer that not many other investor agents can offer. And I'll get taking the system and trying to implement it myself.
Yeah.
Right? And they taught you how the idea of scaling and stuff. So of course I'm so hungry, dude. I'm super hungry. And I go and I implement the system here. The problem is a lot of those prices were based on places like Arizona and California, and the construction's kind of different. So I kind of like, the mistake I made when I first started was I was on the right hunch. I had the right idea, but I didn't have the local knowledge of implementing real estate investing, like in the New England area, because there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of knob and tube and like layers of construction and houses down there. It's really just kind of like one layer of like, you know, terracotta tile or like stucco, you know, or drywall. All the houses are built like in the 70s and 80s. It's not like up here in New England. So I ended up, you know, trying to implement it. I did all right. I did about like 4 flips, and I was like forced in the East Boston condo conversion that I did on my own. You know, and I tried to scale too quick. So at that time in the market, there was a lot of REOs. So I was buying up like REO properties at a discount, but I was still spending too much because the hard money comes with extra fees and stuff like that. And I tried to do too many houses too fast.
Yep.
It was way too stressful for not knowing enough. And you know, it was the first time managing, you know, multiple budgets and multiple projects and multiple contractors. I mean, it was really like, it's a down and dirty education of real estate investing. And I ended up holding my own. That was like 2015, but this is like kind of like where I learned the game, like really learned the game, like, you know, battling through despair and like the, you know, things not going your way and like things not working the way you wanted and stuff like that. Like that was like my learning curve, which serves me now, but was not serving me at the time. And, you know, I had done 4 flips right in a row, one right after the other, after the other, after the other. And I ended up just kind of like getting too, not greedy or cocky, but just hard charging too hard, too fast.
Yep.
And not allowing myself to learn the lessons first. And I bought a house, what I call is the white elephant. You know the story of the white elephant? Some guy sells him a white elephant. He says it's rare, so it's worth a lot of money, but it's, you know, it's rare because nobody wants it.
Yeah.
So I ended up buying that. I ended up buying a property that's built like by a French architect. And it was so weird. It was just like, you know, it was a very hard building to have be like a together building. It was like separate wings. It was contemporary mixed with colonial. It was like plants everywhere, like a super under budgeted, you know, and basically I went to resell it and I couldn't get back what I needed to get out of it. So I actually ended up, you know, it was the first time, this is when I entered like my dark space, like my dark area. And this kind of like reset my life. I had to like, I used every single dollar, every single credit card, every single thing I had to try to get this house finished enough to sell it, to at least make, you know, get out of it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. Thank God I had it in the LLC, because it ended up being a foreclosure. But it was the first time I had to call a private investor, because what I was doing was looping hard money and private money together. And I had to call an investor and be like, hey, listen, I can't sell the house for what we need to get out of it. Like, I have to foreclose. I can't make payments anymore. I can't make any renovations. I can't get what I need off the market. And on top of that, the builder that I didn't have a contract on, it was just like, you know, a gentleman's agreement, like, you know, had ended up suing me for money that, like, he thought I was his worker on my house. So he wanted to sue me for being a general contractor with no agreement on it. We ended up settling, but I couldn't get everyone to agree to a short sale, so I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
So I had to let it go. And it was like, dude, I had to like come to terms with making the phone call to the private investor, and it was probably one of the lowest points in my life that, hey, listen, I can't get your money back. We lost it, but, I assured her that we were going to pay her back in monthly payments, and we have, paid her back in monthly payments. But it was the time where, like, dude, that I think everyone who massively goes through some kind of dark time in the process, and that was it, dude. That knocked me into oblivion. My credit was shot. Luckily, I didn't have to do a bankruptcy, but I was super close. I, settled out of everything. The LLC protected a lot of my personal assets, and I lost my credit. My relationships were shot. I separated. Super like down, dude. Super tough area in my life.
Yeah.
Ended up.
Sorry. Go ahead. That's good. Okay, go ahead.
So I ended up just taking time to like slowly settle out all the debts, pay back what I could through wages. The thing that was crazy was like, although I have like quote unquote failed, I hadn't not learned the lessons. So it didn't go the way I wanted, but I had learned real estate investing. And it's like, I couldn't reject the fact that I knew how to real estate invest, even though it didn't go perfectly the first belt, and I had a lot of challenges and a lot of learning curves. If you had brought me to a real estate investment showing, I just knew what to do because I've already done it. It just didn't work out perfectly. I was off a little bit because I was on my own. I wasn't reading Biggerpockets every weekend and be like, oh, this is what I should do with this kitchen. I was just like, I did dumb stuff like like the reason why I was forced into the condo conversion in East Boston is because I just didn't know how to fill out permits correctly, and I didn't know how to do construction. So I just walked in there and was like, yeah, I'm going to gut rehab this place. I'm going to gut rehab a 3-family in Boston. Like, I just said it like that on the paper. And they're like, cool, guess what? Now you're going to put sprinklers. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, you're going to gut it. You're going to put sprinklers because that's the ordinance in Boston. That's not even a law in the state. That's just a special ordinance in Boston.
Yeah.
That blew my construction budget, $20,000. When you do that, you have to go to a long form permit, which is you have to go through planning. You have to submit plans, and you have to go through an actual engineer, which he's backed up like months, weeks of projects, and then he's throwing your plans back every 2 weeks. Hey, you're missing this, you're missing that. So, I had budgeted for like a shorter project, a buy and hold shorter project. And because what I should have just wrote on the form was, removing one wall, replacing with LVLB, or, just kept it super, super specific rather than writing general gut rehab on a permit like an idiot. So, it forced me down a different kind of road. It gave me the lessons learned, but, it was a tough deal.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, man. And not to interrupt you, Josh, it was definitely, just trying to soak all that in, you know what I mean? And I feel like there's so much value there, man, for a lot of different kind of people looking from the outside in, looking into the game for the first time. And I mean, even especially, people that are in it, because everybody talks about like the sexy thing, man, is like, oh, you're going to scale up. You're going to buy 3 buildings this year instead of 1, like, like raw, like scale it all up, like rip it up. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's definitely, another part of that conversation that should be had about still being able to maintain control at the same time, and not like over leveraging and that kind of thing in different senses. And exactly, man, it's one of those things like it's part of our space, to fumble along, it's like you end up like, just finding out.
that's what I hate about this game is like the sexy part is like super highlighted.
Yeah.
And you don't hear about the fuck ups.
The rest.
And the fuck ups can be expensive.
Absolutely.
And the problem is too, it's like, dude, I think people are scared to put out the idea that maybe they either like lost a little bit of money in real estate or they're not perfect at real estate and maybe in hopes of like not scaring away future partners or whatever. But like, dude, real estate's not it's an art, dude. It's not perfect.
Yep.
You really have to like gauge the situation and the opportunity, and like you got to look at it with like a loose mindset and being like, instead of, you know, having, that's what killed me was having this, you know, we talked about before this interview, this hard structure to follow.
Yep. And
because of me not looking at the situation with like a loose mindset or a loose frame, I had this, you know, system that I had learned that it had to be this way. And I really, like, honestly, if I held on to that East Boston condo conversion, I got that three decker for $400,000. Right now, that three decker would have sold for $1 million, and it needed work. Right now would be probably close to worth $2 million, 1.5, maybe 1.6. And I would have been sitting on it, and it would have been cash flowing like whatever, you know. But because I didn't have like this loose mindset, that structure just killed me. So I think, you know, maybe that's where network comes in. You know, you can't be afraid to kind of like share with your network what issues you're going through, because maybe someone else went through it already, and it can allow you to be flexible and, you know, saving you the headache that I had to suffer.
Exactly, man. It's funny you say that, because I was having a little conversation about that with somebody yesterday that's looking to kind of get into the game, and I was telling him, I'm like, dude, I'm like, you know, the biggest piece of advice, well, I should say one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give to him in particular is like, yeah, you know, there's all the tactical stuff, like, oh, you know, like you can do flips, you can do multis, you can house hack 3.5 down, like whatever, all the tactical shit. But the bigger part of that being is the more, you know, relationships that you build, the more bulletproof you become, especially with, you know, folks that have been in the game for a lot longer, that have built up a lot more stripes. Because it's those situations, man. And I was telling him, I'm like, dude, I'm like, you know, it's part of the game. Once in a while, you get your face stomped in. You know what I mean? It's part of the game, you know. But the thing is when, you know, some of those weird situations come up with tenants, with, you know, shit that is completely unexpected, that's a shit ton of money. Like, whenever these situations come up, you know, that you've never been through before, if you have the people around you to be able to send a text or send a call and be like, hey, dude, like, this is what I got going on. Like, I have no fucking idea what to do. You know, it might be a pleasant surprise, the stronger that your network is, like, that the solutions could literally be a text away. You know what I mean? And I was telling him that. I'm like, dude, I'm like, it's, you know, especially like I mentioned, you know, there's so many people, especially locally. I mean, wherever the hell, you know, people are watching this from, but especially, you know, in our neck of the woods, you know, but like with people that have been in this game for decades, you know what I mean? I called a guy today, like, that I bought a ton of stuff in Fitchburg back in the day, and it was picking his brain on something, and, you know, gave me his advice or whatever. And yeah, man, I attribute like so much towards just building the network, building the friendships, and
Dude,
you know,
the first thing I learned at that Armando thing, the first thing I learned was the affirmation, network equals your net worth. And we pounded it into our heads like, God, I mean, it must have been in 2 hours straight of just like that phrase. No, you know what it was? We learned it like maybe 30 minutes, and then the phrase was just like brought up like every 2 minutes throughout the weekend of learning. Yeah. But it is so true. It is like, this so true. Your network is your net worth. And I wish someone taught me that when I was a little boy, dude, because like I started thinking like it's important to be hardworking, right? It is important to be hardworking, but I think it's more important to have the connections, you know, And if you can be hardworking, smart with the connections, I mean, you're unstoppable.
Absolutely,
so, and
man.
I would argue that, you can even be not hardworking, but have the connections and still be successful.
Exactly.
So, I really, network equals your net worth. And I really wish someone, trust me, my kid's going to know that like the back of his hand. So probably better than the back of his hand.
Yeah, exactly, man. And to your point, man, like there's
only one thing like I don't like about that in real estate is like,
what's that?
You got to build your network, but build it from a collaboration frame, right? Like bring value to somebody in a certain way and let them bring you value back and collaborate to get ahead.
Yep.
Don't like, there's no hierarchy. There's no like, oh, this guy has more doors, so he knows more than me and whatever. And I hate that shit. Like,
yep.
It makes me want to puke, dude. Like, dude, real estate, I've come to terms that real estate's about collaborating. And honestly, a lot of these people are like, oh, is that a good deal? Is that a good deal? Is that a good deal? A lot of times the good deal is because you chose the right people to collaborate with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes the right deal is just you've got the right team together and you guys all provide each other a proportional set of value and make that deal perform as an asset.
Yep.
So, one deal might be advantageous to one person or one team that may not be advantageous to another team. So I just say, network obviously is above all in real estate, but like approach it from a collaboration frame and don't ever count yourself like out or like weaker than another person just because, they may have a little more experience or a little more resources than you do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. You know what I mean? And it's one thing that I want to mention too is like to your point, Josh, like there might be, a potential property that comes up that, is a pretty widespread in terms of like, beef or a lot of meat on the bone, I guess, if you will. But the thing is like if, the team that you're working with, like fucks it up for lack of a better term, like, it doesn't mean anything. But that team, ends up coming in and leverages, everyone's strengths accordingly for the project. You can probably do some really crazy stuff with it, and that's definitely another, part of that, part of the equation is like, not just the right deal, but the right operators as well to guide that thing down the path that it needs to, and to your point as well, of leveraging, the relationships with contractors and private money lenders and PMs and like all these things to like bring it all together into one, process, I guess you could say.
Until you scale, and then, I don't know, just knowing that, it's just like matching the right shapes with the right circles,
Yep.
If it's a certain kind of deal, you have the certain connections for that kind of deal that make it work. Like, you orchestrate it, man.
Exactly.
I'm glad that I've recovered since. Like I've once I got with Candor, I got back into a network. I don't think if I didn't have a network and I wasn't surrounded with it, I probably wouldn't have got back into the game. But I ended up, took about like 3 or 4 years to like get my credit straightened back out again, settle out all my debts, kind of clean up all the messes that were made. And then I ran into like Candor Realty Group, which was like an investment-based, real estate business. And the reason why I felt like Candor was good with me was like, because like, although I hadn't hit the big time real estate investing, it is like really my niche of real estate that I knew. And I just like, I knew it was a fit for me. So I was like, I talked to John there. I was like, I have to go with Candor. I'm glad I made it over there, and just being surrounded in an investment network, like just being able to go to all the meetups that we offer and being able to connect to all the people that we can really got me back into real estate, because I don't think I would have gone back into it after, the taste that was left in my mouth after what I've been through with it. But the support from the network and just being immersed in the investment culture, I think gave me the encouragement to like build back up again and start slowly with like house hacking this time, and making sure I'm having income coming in while I try to build a portfolio,
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And I definitely, know how you feel with that one, man. And I don't blame you, man. Cause it's like, that factor in itself of like the people and that kind of thing. And I feel like that's kind of, invigorated me a little bit, a few years ago. I mean, cause like, once in a while, man, like you literally just get your face stomped in, you know what I mean? And like things go wrong and like, you just get your ass kicked and you know what I mean? Like things just happen. And I feel like it's very easy to get discouraged, especially early on when like boilers are dying out in the middle of the winter time and like tenants are giving you a hard time and like all kinds of shit is just hitting the fan. And then being able to kind of like go back to the community and, basically reinvigorate that fire and you know what I mean? To be like, all right, you know what? Like, get up, like dust yourself off and keep running, cause everybody else has as well. So I definitely know where you're at with that one, man.
That was like, so, dude, and I was still like in my rough area. Like I was sleeping, like I had to move in with my aunt because I was fighting with my mom, and like I was sleeping next to like a boiler in a basement and like an in-law that hadn't been updated in like years. I had just had my son. He was like 6 months, and it's like me and this, not maybe a year. Like me and a 1-year-old, like sleeping next to a fucking boiler in the basement. And I'm like, dude, I know real estate investing, like, I need to do something. Like, this can't be it. You know what I mean? I was like, This can't be it. I'm not staying like this. And I had a guy at work who was retiring, and he had built up a portfolio with his brother. And I called him up, and I knew he was liquidating his property. And this is something I learned later on, because the people that I buy my properties from are usually the same profile sellers. Like for the most part, they're retiring landlords in one way or the other. For the most part, and I had called him up, and I was like, dude, like, are you selling anything? Because like I am in a rough shape, and I need a full family. I'm a single dad now. Like I can't buy a single family on my own in Lowell on a, although I have a good job, the salary is nowhere enough to support a single family home on my own.
Yeah.
With a kid, I knew it needed to be a multi, and I was pretty much going to be thrown in the house hacking whether I liked it or not. So, I reached out to him. He's like, yeah, I'm going to sell my 4-family. And all I had, dude, was my VA loan. I had VA loan. I had like $1,000.
Yep.
And luckily I knew him and was friends with him. He's like, I'm about to sell my 4-family. This other guy wants to put an offer on it. Unbeknownst to me that the guy was trying to wholesale it. I don't know what it is with these wholesalers. He could have performed, right? So I was like, Tommy, dude, this house was, every square inch of this house was chipping lead paint on the siding. Bro, I'm telling you, there was not one square inch that was not chipping.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. And I had a kid that was 1, and I had a federally backed loan. And I'm like, Tom, I'm like, guy's name was Tom. I'm like, Tom, I have a VA loan. I don't know, man, if this is even going to make it to the finish line.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, if you have another offer, take it. And it was that wholesaler with that bullshit offer. And he's like, okay. I was like, if it falls through, let me know. Guy gets to the P&S, never performs on the P&S. The guy throws it up on Facebook, investors group. Hey, wholesale for sale, blah, 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 trying to sell a wholesale. One of my friends sees it, says, hey, that's, the Tom's house. Isn't that the house you were almost going to buy or whatever? And he's like, I'm like, yeah. Took that, sent that picture to the seller. I was like, I don't think your guy's going to perform, dude. You know what I mean? And he's like, cool, you want it? I'm like, yep. He's like, great. And
Yeah.
he's like, and I'm keeping his deposit. And so he broke that contract, sold it to me with like $1,000 down, $1,000 deposit. I got $1,000, got me through the whole deal.
Yeah.
And I thought the deal was going to fall apart because of the chipping lead and BVA, and it came to appraisal time. And I'm like, I know it's filled with chipping lead, man. I was like, do you see any way of this going through close? And he's like, yeah, we'll just do a subject to. And I was like, what's the subject to? And he's like, subject to repairs. And I'm like, you can do that? He's like, yeah, we'll just hold back, 1.5% at closing of what it would cost to repair. And the seller will have so many months to repair it. And they'll just release the seller the money when the work's done. Well, if you know anything about off-market sellers, they don't want any headaches, right? Yeah. And that's another headache, right? To paint the whole house before closing. So we come up with this idea of, most people renegotiate prices up. He's like, listen, we'll get a contractor's estimate. We'll do the 1%. And then for whatever amount that is, because the property is appraised so well, I had the equity in there already. We renegotiated the price up, the amount of money it would take to fix it.
Gotcha.
So that when we close, he's like, listen, you deal with the repair after closing, and I will release the money to you as, a remedy for doing the repairs yourself. And I will walk away with the original amount that I wanted to walk away with anyway.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yep.
I agreed to this because I just needed a house, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I literally, the quote was way lower than it needed to be honest with you. It was a super risky move, but it ended up working out. And we did just that, man. And I moved into the worst unit. The heaters broke literally on the first day I moved in. I turned the dial, turned on, and turned off. And that was it. And I had a 1-year-old, and I was in this crap-ass unit. It used to be 2 porches that were, just later finished. And I made it work, man. I fucking bought the rents up, house hacked it, got it all to perform. I end up applying for a lead loan to fix that lead paint because now the bank was on my ass. And they were like, what's up with that lead paint? What's up with that lead paint? What's up with that chipping paint? Is that fixed it? Is that fixed it? And I'm like, oh my God. And I just reached out to, some of these towns in Massachusetts, they have good lead grants. I just reached out to them saying hey, look, I have a kid that's under 1. I have chipping paint everywhere and I need help getting my house de-leaded.
Yeah.
They're like, great, we got a grant for you. They did a $75,000 loan grant for me, lead loan grant. I redid the whole siding, re-illuminate, put new aluminum everywhere, put new siding everywhere. All of the lead hazards gone. No payment needed to be made. Recorded as a mechanic's lien up against my mortgage. It doesn't have to be paid till either sell or refinance in the future.
Nice.
That $16,000 that was held back, released back to me. Now what could I do with that $16,000?
Now you can run.
I still had a FHA loan, baby.
Yep.
And next thing you know, I was like, hey, bank, I need a bigger place. My son's getting older. And we bought another multifamily with that $16,000. I had 2 multifamilies and within a year.
Badass. That's badass.
All because of that move. And now I was back on top.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I was back on top. I was back in the game. Cash flowing, stabilizing the properties. That second one was during COVID, so it was definitely a challenge, but I got through it. It's one of my better performing properties now. And then I friggin' got into credit unions, told them I need a better place, house hacked another one, got up to 9 units house hacking. You should always be house hacking, especially if you're single. I have a son now, so I got a single family, and that kind of set me back. because half the money that I make goes to like my single family life, which is kind of like a bummer, but I'm able to provide a stable home for my son and my mom that's retired.
Yep.
But like, you should always have your commercial route that you're going and your house hacking route that you're going at all times, like as an investor. If you're a single guy, man, like you should just be house hacking multifamilies. There's no reason for you to have a single family with a yard and, you know, landscaping responsibilities. Like, as a young professional, you do not need that.
Absolutely.
So, you know, unless you're just banking money from your other job and you can do it, then you should
But
be
still,
house hacking.
like, exactly. But still, you know, just pour it into multis, man. It's the way to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
I love that.
and then,
man.
you know, I had enough equity where I freaking pulled 100% loan of value HELOC on my primary residence because I was owner occupying it, and I got a cheap commercial property, cheap commercial multifamily in a cheap area. I had a better return. So with half the money, I got double the return I would make if I bought. You know, it's a little further out for me, but like it's a better return for me.
Yep.
And it's less money, and I'm in the commercial world now. So now I have a commercial flow and a house hacking flow.
Yeah. I love the way you phrased that, man. Having like kind of both going, both directions, you know, both paths going at the same time. I like that a lot.
I can still house hack flow, you know what I mean? I can still like justify it. Like I can still like with buying this new, so I'm closing on another 11 units that I partnered up with Andrew Freed on April 2nd, which will put me to 28 units. But like now I can use that as an excuse to buy a multi out there for a house hack, even though I have my primary single.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I might just do that.
Hell yeah. The thing that I love too, man, to your point, is like, I feel like when you jump, like the first phase of investing, like this is something I've been thinking about recently, especially. I feel like the first phase is like, you know, saving up the money, buying the property, you know, house hacking for the first time, XYZ, starting to get your feet wet. And then the second phase is when you're able to leverage the equity through, you know, whether you're doing a cash out refi, whether you're doing a HELOC, to then continue buying and continue. I feel like that's when things kind of start to accelerate a bit. You know, and continuing to keep building at you know, a much more accelerated kind of pace. But yeah, I mean, so that's one of those things that I'm in the same boat, man. You know what I mean? I ended up you know, just leveraging the home equity line that I've had for a couple of years now. I ended up, you know, I put it into something and ended up just getting it back a couple days ago, actually. You know, and I'm paying the line back as we speak. You know, and just kind of getting ready to you know, to dump it into the next couple things, really, you know what I mean? And continuing to house hack as well. And just continuing to get things to flow. But yeah, to your point, Josh, it's like, I feel like, you know, when you really start to run, especially, you know, jumping into that world when it comes to being able to leverage, you know, built up equity in different kinds of ways, you know, that's when things can really, you know, really start to accelerate and really start to move, you know. And I mean, because most of us, to your point, like, you know, have some sort of, you know, W-2 job out there, you know, some other ways of income that we're continuing to work as well, you know, while house hacking at the same time to, you know, obviously keep saving money that's just straight liquid, you know, that doesn't have an interest rate attached to it, like a home equity line or, you know, like a cash out refi. Well, I mean, that doesn't have debt attached to it, but yeah, so I'm totally with you there, my man. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, you know, and it's a pretty beautiful thing to, you know, continue being able to do that. And guys, to Josh's point, you know, when it comes to the residential, kind of going like the residential and the commercial route at the same time, it's something that, you know, it's a really cool way to go, because, to be able to keep house hacking, like there's multiple different types of, low down payment loan options out there. Josh, for example, being a veteran, he, had access to a VA loan. There's FHA loans out there that many people, myself included, start out with. That's like your 3.5% downs. There's a 5% conventional loan that just came out last November. That's friggin' awesome. And yeah, I mean, even to Josh's point, even earlier in the interview, going through credit union, sometimes they have, different programs as well. I know that there was one that I think Ian Hogan and a couple other people might have used. It was like a 5% down to buy like a 2-family with like Fidelity Bank or something like that. To just continue, putting on units and that kind of thing. And even in a small capacity, and more than likely, they're still going to have that either 6 month or a year occupancy period, to have to fulfill, to make the bank happy. And, yeah, just kind of like keep rolling with those things. But at the same time, jumping into, like you have, jumping into the commercial space, is another phenomenal way to leverage equity as well. Because guys, like, you may or may not be familiar, but when it comes to commercial multifamily, which is everything above five units, the properties are valued in a completely different way than regular, less than 4 units are. It turns into a game of net operating income, cap rates, net. Yeah, I mean, basically, like, the more income that's generated by the property, subtracting out the expenses and that type of thing is a different valuation from like, oh, here's a 6-family, across the neighborhood that sold like 6 months ago for 1.8 or 800 or whatever. It's kind of a whole different game. You know what I mean? And there can be a lot of potential value that can be generated, from turning units and, just increasing your net operating income in, any way that you can, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like I said, to Josh's point, like, you're continuing to house hack, every year or, every couple years or whatever, to take those hits of like 3 units, 4 units, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units, with a much lower down payment, is an incredibly lucrative thing, to do as well. I learned actually recently after, something that happened, that I needed to build a much better foundation for myself, before, kind of exploring some different things. And what that kind of came down to was like, picking up more 3 and 4 units and house hacking a lot more often. You know what I mean? To keep getting those hits of like, all right, here's like $500 a month. Here's $1,000 a month net, from a 3 or a 4 unit building, and just kind of keep piling those things up and generating, equity via appreciation and turning units and that type of thing, as well as going after the big stuff as well, so definitely some absolutely awesome advice there, my man. Yeah. So, I don't know, there's definitely, a lot of benefit in that kind of thing. And I mean, even something that Josh mentioned too, guys, about looking in different areas, you know what I mean? And, somewhere like a central or a Western Mass might be more of a cash flow. Well, I should say is more of a cash flow type of play, depending on where you would like to go. And maybe it's a little bit further away from you, but purchase prices are generally cheaper, especially if you're living in like Middlesex County, Southern New Hampshire, debatably, like, just because it's the property's like relatively far away from you, depending on, how you define, close and far. It's not the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? And it's something that, you can continue to buy, relatively, cheaper properties, depending on what your reference point is, in areas that may be a bit further away. and still self-manage them, and that's even a topic that we could go down to, man, is like, self-managing versus throwing in a property manager and that kind of thing. And, rolling with it. But, yeah, so it's a really beautiful thing, guys. And, hey, there we go.
Still?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's all right, buddy.
I had a consumer protection lawyer call me. I'm trying to see if this solar company just gave me a bill for $40,000 for change order. So I'm trying to see if it's justified.
That's all right, man. No worries at all. No, I gotcha. But yeah. So I was just mentioning a little bit the kind of the power of going continuing to house hack and that kind of thing. Having the low down payment loans from the different banks and stuff like that. Continuing to loop those, as well as jumping into the next phase when folks get there, of being able to leverage the equity that just gets built up from home equity lines, from cash out refinances, and continuing to kind of accelerate once you get to that point.
The key is, like, when you start your house hacking, like, you don't know how your path's going to unfold. Everyone's path unfolds differently. So, like, the point is not to get discouraged.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I definitely agree with you. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, man, 100%. And that's one thing to keep in mind too, guys, is the it's very easy to potentially get discouraged, like we were talking about earlier in the interview, with some of those things that might come up, and tenants that might not be favorable, like boilers that are going out, oil tanks that are going out. Like, everybody has their war stories that are completely different, you know what I mean? And it is easy to that's all right, man. No.
I had to get home dinner.
It is, easy to potentially get discouraged, in some of those situations. And, but the absolutely important thing is to, you're going to get through it just like everybody does. You know what I mean? So you just keep rolling.
It's a journey, man. You just don't know how yours is going to unfold. You just got to keep effort in trying to make it unfold and make it manifest in one way or the other. A lot of times it won't manifest the way that you expect it to manifest.
Absolutely. I'm going through that right now, man. I mean, like, Josh, a lot more than other people, but I had an interesting bout with syndication stuff last year, and I'm definitely not on that path anymore. But yeah, man, like, you just, to Josh's point, guys, like, I feel like there's a lot of power in being intentional about what you want, but also having kind of an open mind to let things flow how they flow. Like, you might meet somebody that's like, doing crazy flips and shit like that. Like, you guys hit it off. Maybe something like that could be more of a fit for your, for your next project. You know what I mean? And, instead of doing like another house hack or something like that. And, you never know, but as long as you're continuing to push forward and continuing to, do deals and buy stuff and all that, like, things are going to pan themselves out, and the river is going to flow, or it's going to flow.
And there's so many facets on how to use real estate. You can fit yourself in anyway,
Yep.
Whether it's starting off as a rental agent or, you can say, nothing says you can't start off as a syndicator. You don't have to go through a whole process.
Yeah.
It's just nice that a little bit more, you have a little more experience to offer, because you're raising funds from other people, and they're going to want to trust their funds with someone that knows their stuff. But if you know your stuff and you raise funds and you can pull GP equity because you know how to raise money and you're just a money raiser, it doesn't mean you just, it's just your way. That would be, you would be a different journey. That'd be your way of getting into real estate. And you might just be really good at that,
Yeah, to your point, man. Like, exactly. There's so many different ways to be able to jump into the industry and leverage the benefits. I mean, even like there's a million different friggin', like, I guess sub directions, to be able to go and still leverage the benefits of, the appreciation.
You're better
the
off,
cash flow,
honestly. You're better off being a funder, man. Driving out the property all the time is exhausting,
It
and
is.
trying to deal with tenants that don't want to pay rent and stuff. It's much easier to just sit at home and be like, when's my Zoom coming up for the deal review so I can yell at guys and why rent's not performing,
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a nicer position to be in.
Yeah, man. Sitting there with a cup of coffee and like a couple cookies or something. Like,
why isn't that rent market yet?
What the fuck? Yeah.
Dude, I'm trying.
You're trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So what's next for you, Josh? I know, you're hammering on a lot of different things, man. And but what's next for you? Like, what do you kind of have your eyes on?
I partnered on this small little syndication, this 11-unit deal. I think I'm going to try to start raising my own funds for my own passive investors. I feel like I have a well enough knowledge base where I can run my own projects now.
Yep.
But what comes with that is scaling a property management company, being an investor. You're just inherently going to have a property management company because you're not going to find a property manager that you like. That just doesn't do things the way that you want them or as nice as you want them to be done. So you're just going to probably have a non-profit management company. So I'll be scaling that because I'll need that to scale into the hundreds now as I get in, hopefully as I get into having hundreds of units. So that's what I'm looking at now is just kind of trying to utilize my, boot ground skills and general Excel skills to, your general Microsoft Excel skills to run my own deals and have my own investors and sell my own products, That along with just really focusing on, real estate, being an agent is getting really, really competitive and you're really being put on the spot to show your value. And I think what I will do is I will probably try to add the appraiser license and the inspector's license to my portfolio or to my resume. I want to be able to show super value, and I just want people to be like, shit, he knows what he's talking about. Like I have a good agent. I've hired a good agent. That's how I want people to feel. I hate the feeling of, if I feel like I'm riding on someone's coattails during the deal, I hate that feeling because I just feel like I'm not bringing any value.
Yep.
It's not, I used to be like that a lot at the beginning because, you don't know shit. But now as I get more and more experience, it's less and less that still happens. That's not as much, but I really just want to hone in on my skills and own them. I'll probably take the broker's test. I have the certification done. Honestly, the hardest part is getting the application accepted through the Mass Board of Realtors, man. I'm telling you, man, those guys is harder than easier to get into a fucking Ivy League college, man.
I'd believe it.
They're like, we want the insurance broker's bond signed, wet signature by both people in the insurance. There's no broker bond insurance companies that are near me. And it's it's such a difficult process. It's amazing. And it's the same thing on the de-letting side too. You know what I mean? It's just
it's our wonderful state.
So much red tape, man. It's so difficult. I swear, that's what cuts a lot of people off from doing it. It's just it's so hard to get set up that people
probably. Yep, a lot of extra baloney.
They're probably fuck this. I'll just do it illegally.
Exactly. Yeah.
They do. The state really does make things hard, but
yeah.
anyways, Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at. So I'm hoping by like maybe the next time we do a talk, I'm at least in the triple digit number of units. That's what I'm really hoping for.
How many will you be at now after the 11?
28, and then I have a deal that I'm underwriting right now for another 28. I think I only need to raise about $600,000. The only thing is, there's not a lot of appreciation in the town that I'm dealing with that project. So it's a heavy cash flow project, but it's it's just another project. So we'll see if I can get some funding on that. And please put it out, man. I am looking to establish relationships with people for funding. So if you want to get to know me, send me a DM on Instagram, connect with me somehow, some way, so I can add you to my project release, my project releases, and my and emailing you any opportunities that I might see that I can work. So
hell yeah, absolutely.
So get me your email address and your full name, and I will get you opportunities for true passive real estate investments.
Hell yeah, man. That was one of the, I guess, kind of the final questions too, is like where on social media and stuff can you be found? I'll drop everything below, you know what I mean? But
Instagram's good. LinkedIn, Facebook. Honestly, you could text me. My phone number is 978-746-1431. I answer the phone directly, so you get me.
Not a secretary?
There's no secretary, which I really do need one soon.
This is the real deal, guys.
Yeah. Phone call goes right to me.
Yes.
And and I answer quickly. So
hell yeah.
And then you also have, I'm also on Biggerpockets. So
reach out to Josh,
which
guys.
I have
Absolutely.
to add another project to that. Yeah. So please do. Look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. Cool, man. Thank you so much for coming on here, Josh. This was a lot of fun, man. Hell yeah.
That's a wrap for today's episode. We want to thank you for being a valued listener of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Make sure to visit www.creatingwealth.com to connect with us. Dive into our ever-expanding library of informative blogs and explore a wide range of additional valuable resources. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to create wealth together.